Right now, the possibilities seem endless with this Indiana basketball head coaching search, but what about TJ Otzelberger from Iowa State?
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Well, thank you so much for being here, truly making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. We'll look at an updated bracketology. I know we just had this yesterday, but we've got updates since then. And with Indiana playing Penn State tonight, want you to know exactly where we stand and what we have to do. Plus, we'll break down that Penn State game, what happened the first time, right, when we went to the Palestra in Philadelphia. Now Penn State comes to Assembly Hall. So all of that coming up later on in today's episode. But this name has floated around for quite some time. And I've seen so many of you in the comments and on social media, just Indiana fans in general, asking about this particular name for the Indiana head coaching search. And it's somebody who has quickly risen in the rankings, right? Somebody that has quickly started to become a household name and somebody that has had great success in, I'm not going to say his short amount of time, but in his limited amount of time compared to some others that we've talked about on this head coaching search list. And it's TJ Otzelberger at Iowa State. This guy has been a flat out winner. During his time at Iowa State, they have not missed the NCAA tournament once. They've made it every single time he's been there. They made it to the Sweet 16 last year. And this team that he has right now, if they can get on a run, if they could get healthy, I think that's a big part of it too. They're Final Four good. They are Final Four good at Iowa State this year. Listen to some of these numbers and things that they've been doing. Okay, they're 21-7. They have had a 3-game skid. And they're currently on a 2-game skid after they lost to Oklahoma State last night. That was on Tuesday. They've got Arizona coming up, BYU, and then Kansas State. But you talk about bracketology just to give you an idea, right, of where Iowa State stands right now and why this is so important for the Cyclones. They're still a 2 seed right now. In the NCAA tournament, they matched up with Norfolk, Ole Miss, VCU. That doesn't matter. I'm telling you this because Otzelberger's a really, really good coach in his time. All right. He's been coaching his 9th season right now at Iowa State, was at South Dakota State, right? Took them to the NCAA tournament twice. Okay. He was then at Nevada, Las Vegas for a couple of years, and then Iowa State jumped on him. Made the NCAA tournament, won the Big 12, went to the Sweet 16. And as I mentioned, now they're a legit Final Four team if they can just get back right before the NCAA tournament. His coaching record, for those of you that are curious, in his 9 years, 64.5 winning percentage. So we can round up and say 65 for fun, right? 9 years, he's got 190 wins, just 105 losses. This guy wins. But I'm curious on a couple of things. Things that we've already talked about on this program during this entire coaching search is this name big enough? Is this sexy enough? Is this splashy enough for Indiana? Some of you want that. Others of you don't. We're starting to see some major separation right now in the Indiana fan base on what exactly you want with this head coaching hire. Do you want the big, splashy, news-breaking name, right, to step into Bloomington? Or do you want that maybe smaller head coach or maybe even an up-and-comer, right? Somebody that if you hit on him could be here for the next 2.5 decades. People have different opinions here. What I'm hearing, though, in terms of Otzelberger is, and not even from him or his camp or nothing like that, I'm saying just what people are asking right now about him. Does he want to be in that spotlight? Does he want to be in a place where the pressure is higher than most jobs in college basketball? Indiana's a top 10 pressure job. Let's just say it like it is. And if you don't agree with that, you just haven't been paying attention over, I don't know, the history of the sport. This is not an easy place to be. This is not an easy place to coach. If you win, you're beloved. You are praised right after Jesus on Sunday mornings. But if you lose, then things get really nasty. And you've seen that with Mike Woodson. You saw it with Miller. You saw it with Sampson. You saw it with a lot. And there were obviously many other things in those situations as well. I'm saying with Otzelberger, the conversations that I'm hearing people have are, would he want to take this job? And I don't know. I have no idea. I have not seen or heard anything in terms of whether he would truly be interested, whether he would leave Iowa State, whether he would leave a really good situation that he has almost built from the ground up, right? And I don't know whether he would leave or not. They've kept this pretty quiet. I mean, he's kind of busy, right? He's kind of got a lot going on right now. He's coaching a top 10, top 15 team, a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament coming up in a couple of weeks. He's kind of got other things on his mind. Doesn't mean conversations aren't happening, though. Doesn't mean that Indiana's not talking about it. I think he's on the list. Absolutely. And if Indiana really wanted to make the call, they could. And guess what? There's a lot of people, myself included, that think they should. And if you've been listening to this show or you've been watching this show, there are several people that I've said Indiana should make the call to. You can make more than one phone call. This isn't jail on a Friday night. You can make more than one call, and Indiana gets to make the decision too. I feel like people are forgetting this idea. It's like a job interview where you go in thinking it's one-sided. You go in thinking you're talking to them and trying to convince them to hire you, but you also need to interview them and make sure that that's a place you want to work. Coaching searches go the same way. Indiana needs to talk to these guys and make sure that they are what Indiana wants, making sure that they are going to fit the IU brand. They're going to fit what happens here. Indiana needs to do that. Don't just make this a one call and go. You have options if you're the Hoosiers. And if you have to convince somebody to come here, you have to convince them to step into the pressure and into the light and into what everything that comes with this job. If you have to beg them for this, then it's not the right scenario. Would that be the case with Otzelberger from Iowa State? I don't know. Only one way to find out. But if you're looking for a really good coach who all he does is win, and I would think would stay out of the light in a bad way, stay out of trouble, and just do his job, and has proven in his short amount of time that he can win, he makes perfect sense, man. Makes perfect sense. So, Indiana, Scott Dolson, pick up the phone. Make the call. Put him on the list. I think he is, and I think Indiana will make this phone call. Will he be the next head coach? At this point, we really just don't know. All right, coming up here next on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast, Indiana hosting Penn State tonight, the second game between the Hoosiers and the Nittany Lions. What has to happen for the Hoosiers to avoid just a detrimental loss here tonight to the second worst team in the league? We'll tell you about it coming up next right here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature. It's the best thing they've got going because you can pick up a game at any time. Who cares if you miss tip-off? Jump on it in the second quarter. Jump on it at halftime. Fourth quarter, waiting for somebody to go off. Boom, you can hop on it with FanDuel. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can bet $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Appreciate you being here, making this your go-to spot for all things Indiana athletics. If you are listening on audio, watching on video, I just want to say thank you. I do. I want to say thank you because this is considered the slower period of what in terms of news, not for us, not here in Indiana. We got a lot going on, but you guys continue to show up and show out. So thank you so much for being here and truly being a supporter of everything we do with Locked On Hoosiers. For those of you listening on audio, you know how to do it. You know how to help us out, right? Be sure you follow us, turn on your notifications, leave us those 5-star reviews. All of that helps us out tremendously. And my YouTube watchers, like the video, hit that thumbs up, right? Leave your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Otzelberger, next up, is he the right guy for the job? Should Indiana make the call to Iowa State and take their head coach? Plus, that buyout's only like $4 or $5 million. I think it's not bad in terms of buyout money. So keep that in mind. And then be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Really appreciate you doing all of that to help us out here on Locked On Hoosiers. Speaking of Hoosiers, right, we're back in action tonight inside of Assembly Hall, coming off the big win Sunday afternoon in our building against the Purdue Boilermakers. Love beating those guys. It just something feels right about beating Purdue, does it not? We get to take on Penn State tonight, a team we've already seen and a team we've already beaten. And so you know the narrative. Oh, it's hard to beat a team twice, Jacob. You know how that is. This isn't football. This is basketball. And when a team is just better, you should beat them twice and 3 times and 4 times and 5. That's how this sport works. And I'm going to say this with no disrespect to Penn State or my guy, Zach Seiko at Locked On Nittany Lions. We're a better basketball team than Penn State. He would probably tell you that too. We're a better team than Penn State. Just look at the numbers, look at the ratings, look at the rankings, look at the wins and losses. We are a better team than Penn State. Doesn't mean we can just cakewalk ourselves into this and come out with a win. Didn't happen at the Palestra, right? We had to fight for that win. We had to earn that win way back when, right? When we went to Philly, played technically a road game, right? It was mostly Penn State folks. Indiana fans traveled, which we always do. But we got that win 77-71. That was just the 4th game of the conference schedule. So pick your brain a little bit. Think back to what happened in this matchup. I'm going to tell you right now. 77-71. You used a big run to start the second half from Mackenzie Mbako. Had one of his best games of the year, right? Had 24 and 2, 20 points, 4 rebounds, and 2 assists. Sorry, I didn't say that clearly enough. 20 points, 4 of 8 from downtown to Mackenzie Mbako. A lot of that in that second half, right? So you are able to use 20 points from him, 25 from Umar Ballo, who had a massive day down low. More on that in just a second. And that's pretty much it. You got 12 points from Goody. You did get 9 from Rice and 8 from Trey Galloway. That was your starting 5. That was your starting 5. Because remember, Malik Reneau was not playing in this game, was not involved in this at all. Whereas Penn State had a couple of guys, just didn't do a whole lot. It was Nick Kern off the bench that came in with 21 that just absolutely sliced and diced against this Indiana defense, because that's what Penn State wants to do. They want to force turnovers, get out and run, and get to the rack. They can't shoot. They're a terrible shooting team. I think they're middle of the pack Big Ten, but it feels like a whole lot worse when you watch this team. And remember the last time Penn State played IU. Do you remember what their shooting percentage was? If you don't, I'll give it to you right here. 3 for 21 from downtown. That's a whopping 14% was Penn State. And so if you're the Hoosiers playing at home inside of Assembly Hall, you need to force them to shoot the basketball. Lock down the paint, force them outside. I'm saying it right now, play more zone. Play zone defense. We went to it in that second half against Purdue, and crazy enough, it worked. It worked. You can do it against Penn State because they can't shoot the 3. And with the zone, you and I have talked about this before, where we've struggled with that with 3-point shooting teams because you move with the basketball, right? It's how the zone defense works. You move with the basketball and fill the gaps. We struggled to do that quickly enough, properly, and with good communication, where we would leave guys open. We'd leave open lanes to the basket, and teams were scoring at ease. That's why we haven't played the zone a whole lot. But I think against a team like Penn State, it is effective because your idea, your goal tonight is lock down the painted area. Don't let them in there. Make them shoot anything else. And if you do, I think you have a good chance to win. Offensively for the Hoosiers, you saw it against Purdue. Go right back to it. Do you go with Umar Ballo, who had a good game last time against Penn State? Or do you go with Malik Reneau, who didn't get a shot at Penn State, who had a really good game against Purdue on Sunday afternoon? I bet it's that one. I bet it's Malik Reneau. I would be willing to bet that he gets a lot more playing time tonight. And we saw on Sunday, Bala didn't play a bunch. Kenzie and Baco didn't play a bunch. The starting lineup was changed around. Anthony Leal needs to be on the floor. He needs to be on the floor. And I've admitted this several times and will continue to do so. I am eating so much crow right now on Anthony Leal because he plays harder than anybody else on the team. He gives more effort, more energy, more passion than anybody on this Hoosier squad. And it shows, and it actually benefits this team offensively and defensively. It impacts this team in so many ways. He needs to be on the floor, does Anthony Leal. So I think you'll see a lot of him tonight. I think you'll see a lot of Malik Reneau tonight. Would love to see Luke Goody get back into a nice rhythm at home tonight against this Penn State squad. They can't hang with you offensively, which sounds kind of crazy. We're talking about the Indiana Hoosiers, right? Penn State cannot hang with you offensively. They just can't. And wouldn't it be nice, as I get our full schedule pulled back up here, for us to come into this game and just handle business, just almost a stress-free type of game. Not, it's 40 minutes, it's a Big Ten game, I understand that. But I'm talking, go way back when to your Big Ten opener against Minnesota. 82-67, 15-point win, you had it in hand down the stretch. What about a game like that? Haven't had very many of those. USC kind of felt that way, right? Which is, again, still a really solid win, I think, 82-69. But other than that, man, you've been in blowouts on the wrong side of them. You've been in heartbreaking losses, and you've been in gut-wrenching wins. Like, you've been in close games every single night. This is your last chance to have what I would say is a comfortable win at home against Penn State, the second worst team in the Big Ten, because after this, as we've talked about, you go on the road for your West Coast trip. You take on Washington and you take on Oregon. Now, Washington's the worst team in the conference, but it's on the road and it's your first big time trip across the country. I have no idea how we're going to react. Then you play Oregon, who's a really good squad, and you play Ohio State, who is kind of in and out of the bubble. We'll talk more about them in just a second when we look at the updated bracketology. So is it a crazy ask? Maybe. Very well could be for me to say, how about a stress-free game? How about just a nice, easy win for Indiana tonight against Penn State? Do I think it happens? I don't know. Probably not. Knowing this team, probably not. I do think we win. I do. I think we win. I think we're better. If we just execute on all sides, on all ends of the game, all sides of this, I mean, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. Go down low, feed your big men, get to the free throw line, don't foul. Penn State loves to shoot free throws, and they make them at a high clip too. If you can defend without fouling and you don't turn the basketball over, make them take tough twos and threes, you're going to be just fine. You're playing at home. I expect the crowd to be incredible. I think Indiana wins, and it's a game, as I've mentioned, you can't afford to lose. Indiana, we cannot afford to lose this game against Penn State. This cannot be another UCLA situation, right? You beat Michigan State, you turn around and lose to UCLA. They're a much better team than Penn State is, but you just beat Purdue. Don't wash that win away with a bad home loss to the Nittany Lions tonight inside of Assembly Hall. All right, coming up on our final segment of Locked on Hoosiers, take a look at the latest bracketology. Even since yesterday, we've got updates on where the Hoosiers are, plus where their remaining opponents are, and just the Big Ten as a whole. We'll have that for you in our final segment here on the Locked on Hoosiers podcast. All right, final segment here on Locked on Hoosiers. Thank you so much again for being here. Really do appreciate you and your support. And as we get closer to Selection Sunday, folks, we're 2.5 weeks away. We're going to be looking at bracketology a bunch because Indiana, we're on the bubble, but we control our own destiny. And the wins over Michigan State and Purdue were massive. I mean, just incredible. Purdue in particular is the one that has really started to give us a little bit of respect, has started to give us a little bit of traction. And I thought that Joe Lunardi would give us more credit for the Purdue win. We looked at the CBS Sports one yesterday. If you want to go check that out on yesterday's episode, we got more respect there. We were according to Jerry Palm, who does the CBS Sports Bracketology, we were one of the first 4 teams, right? We were playing in the first 4 in Dayton. I believe we matched up with Wake Forest in that bracketology. Joe Lunardi came out with one yesterday afternoon where Indiana is still in the first 4 out. We're still on the outside looking in, which I don't totally disagree with. It's the fact of the team that's in front of us that I disagree with. We are behind the likes of Wake Forest, okay, who is right now 5th in the ACC, which is by far the worst Power 5 conference in college basketball, and it's not even close. That the ACC is horrifically bad, okay? So Wake Forest is in there ahead of us, right? According to Joe Lunardi, they are last 4 in. Arkansas, hard to argue with them with John Calipari. They've got some nice wins, I would say. Does Arkansas? They're 40th right now in the net, is Arkansas. And so here's where it starts to get tricky, though. Wake Forest is 64th in the net as of Wednesday morning. They're 64th in the net with 2 quad 1 wins. They've only played 8 quad 1 games. They have a quad 2 loss. They have a quad 3 loss. Doesn't feel like they're being punished for that, does it? Your Indiana Hoosiers right now, 56th in the net rankings. Our quad 1 record is horrific, but we have 4 wins in quad 1. Yes, we have 11 losses, and that should be taken into consideration, but we don't have what they call a bad loss. We're undefeated in quad 2, quad 3, quad 4, which is what you're supposed to be. So why is Wake Forest not being punished for their bad losses, but being rewarded for less quad 1 wins than us? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Arkansas, I don't really have an argument for them. I think they've got good wins. I think they're doing just fine. I'm not too upset with Arkansas. The team that makes me really upset, according to Joe Lunardi, is the fact that North Carolina, the Tar Heels of North Carolina, who did completely off track for just half a second here. Did you see the news yesterday that they signed a contract extension with Hubert Davis last summer for an extra 2 years, paying him even more money, and now they're on the verge of missing the NCAA tournament? Ooh, bet they're regretting that decision, don't you think? They're extended Hubert Davis for 2 extra years. Believe that keeps him there, I want to say, through 2030. I could be wrong on the year, so don't quote me on that, but they signed that contract extension, kept it under the table too, and then it came out yesterday and not looking too sweet. But here's what makes me upset about North Carolina. The fact that they are the legit first team out in Joe Lunardi's bracketology. Your Indiana Hoosiers are right behind them. Do you want to know what North Carolina's quad 1 record is? Do you want to know? Because it's pretty bad. And I looked at it yesterday, and getting their exact net ranking pulled up right now on the net rankings. Because again, they are the first team out, according to Joe Lunardi, where your Indiana Hoosiers are 56th right now in the net rankings, as I am really struggling to find where they are. I just saw it I literally just looked at it this morning, and then everything refreshed and I lost it. Regardless, was looking for their exact net rankings for the Tar Heels, as they are ahead of your Indiana Hoosiers in the NCAA tournament, which doesn't make any sense. Why? It's because in quad 1 games, I'm going to find it, I promise you. There they are. 1-10 in quad 1 games. Just wanted to confirm with that. They're 1-10. They're 44th. That's what I was looking for. They're 44th in the net rankings. Somehow, by being 1-10 in quad 1 games, they've won one good game they've won all season long. Not to mention, they've got a quad 3 loss in there, thanks to the ACC. You're telling me that team is ahead of Indiana? You're telling me that a team that has played less quad 1 games, has won less quad 1 games, and has a bad loss on the schedule is better and more deserving than Indiana to be in the NCAA tournament right now? Make that make sense, Joe. That doesn't make any sense. Please explain your reasoning here. I think it may have a little something to do with the logo. I think it may have a little something to do with the name and the brand. And we're starting to talk North Carolina, Indiana. That's two of the biggest brands you can get in college basketball. But as I've confirmed, they're 44th in the net. I don't see how that's physically possible. With a 1-10 quad 1 record, a bad quad 3 loss, there's no way they should be ahead of Indiana in bracketology right now. But we can't control that if you're Indiana in terms of what they want to do. All we can control are the games on our schedule, which is Penn State tonight, on the road at Washington, on the road at Oregon, and home for Ohio State. Win your games and you're in. It really is that simple for this Indiana squad in the last 4 games of the season. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much again for being here. I cannot stress enough how important and how much it means to me for all of you to be here listening on audio, watching on video, however you take in this show. I really do appreciate it, okay? We're back tomorrow for another episode, plus the Big Ten Squad Show post tomorrow. You're going to want to check that out because your boy got a promotion in the Big Ten squad this week. So we'll have all that coming up for you tomorrow. Normal episode in the morning, Big Ten squad tomorrow afternoon. That's all going to be right here on the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. So until then, Hoosier fans, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.